I will now go a little bit further with the process. So, adding probability for success in facilitation. So I will now hopefully respond some of your questions in chat as well. But of course, this very rich environment, and I just mentioned Risto that there's a lot of details and a lot of stuff in it. So I try to keep this in a bit more generic level. But one thing first is that when we are having a transformational process, that we try to somehow develop our organizational culture from, well, let's say again, from this kind of hierarchical to more self-directing or self-organizing way, or from passive to more active participation, or from this kind of very monological discussion culture to more dialogic one. One thing is, which I want to pinpoint, is that this very workshop or way to promoting the change must represent that aimed culture. So I have said it that way, that when we want to boost dialogue, we can't do that through monologic means. So we have to practice that kind of ways of working in our transformational workshops that take us, represent, give us experience of that aimed culture. And I guess many of you who have been in working life have encountered this kind of phenomena where maybe the upper management says that now participation is important, and then we set up a nice workshop or meeting where people are encouraged to participate and say aloud what they think, and in the end there is some managerial comment that somehow ruins the starting participative cultural ideas pretty effectively. Okay, what about adding probability for success in facilitation? So I will go through now this process type of thing. So there are quite evident stages of facilitative process, and first it's a preparation. And in preparation, we build kind of foundation for our success, and that's of course again depending on the challenge. If we are very routinized practice where we have been doing the same thing many times, maybe the preparation is not needed so much, but still I would argue that it's needed. And then what's important is getting started. I will highlight this, how we start our workshops, because this is also challenging, that we sometimes might have a rush to go to the content and not making agreement how we are going to work and what's our idea of the purpose. And then how to maintain the flow during whether it's 1-day workshop or 2-hour workshop or event. So how we maintain the flow and productivity throughout the workshop. And then it's closing and reflecting. This is another part that we sometimes don't have time to take care of. But I will argue that this is as important as the others. So I will now open up a bit each of these. What are my thoughts? And when we talk about preparation, I think first thing is knowing the context. So knowing something about the situation where if you have we are invited to be a facilitator in a workshop in an organization, I think it's good to discuss about the situation, why this workshop is happening, how it's connected to other things, what is the overall culture of the organization. So meaning that is it kind of common practice to have kind of participatory work, and why the session. So what is the overall purpose from the organizational point of view. Is there any tensions or touchy issues involved? Of course, this is something that is good to know and be prepared for if there are some previous experiences or difficult UT process. I don't know what's that's in English, but some experience in the back. What kind of dependencies there are? So if there is an idea generation workshop, maybe there are some limitations as well. Who's the owner of the process? Who's interested in the outcome and the workshop as a whole? What are the expectations? Are they kind of what's said aloud? Are there some hidden expectations? This is normally discussed when we discuss with the client in before the workshop. But in organization, I think it's always good to somehow contextualize the process. And then about the participants. So who are participating? Why not? What's their situation? What's their pre-experience, pre-knowledge, and how to manage their expectations in a good way. So what kind of preparations ask them to do and what kind of pre-info is given. And yourself. So we as facilitators, we should be prepared. And I think this is the tricky part when you are more experienced and routinized, then you start trusting on your own way of doing. So this may be a biased way of working, and I think it would be very good to take a moment to think through your own pre-assumptions about the situation and your own biases maybe and expectations and worries. So it was interesting when we were planning this course, and I acknowledged that this was really a new challenge, and I was really worried in many ways, and said to Risto that okay, I'm really it's hard to know about the experience and how this could be useful, this course, and how to facilitate this kind of online working, and because there's no response truly, so you don't see people, their reactions. You just hope that they are listening to you. And being prepared, and I will come back to this being prepared, because it's also being prepared in a way that what could happen. Because I talk about adding probability, because this is something that we can never be sure, absolutely sure that this will happen, because these are the kind of living systems, and social systems have some uncertainties, and how to be prepared to surprises. Because I'd like to add this thing also that when I have experienced that I'm not so prepared, or I think that this goes as before, then there's a high risk that I fail. Somehow it doesn't go very well, and that's part of how to be present truly. And then about methods and process as such, so how to design to aimed experience. This is now something I like to highlight, is that can we plan, can we foresee that what we want people to do, and what kind of atmosphere we would like to create, how we can connect people to talk to each other, and how to really kind of think through how we can work together to create a good experience. And of course, it's to produce the outcomes as well. So it's about flow and stages and rhythm. What are the critical moments? Are there something that, okay, this is now the issue that maybe we are not so good, this kind of critical issue, and it must be discussed carefully. What are the kind of options? And this is something that if some issue is taking more time than we thought, what we are skipping out, and how we plan to have this kind of different scenarios beforehand. And then the arrangements. So what is the site? Is it serving the purpose the way we are planned to work? What kind of equipment we need? what kind of technology, can we pre-test? I think it's utmost important pre-test, and being in place early enough, because sometimes it happens that, okay, we have a 100-person workshop and we order to have a group tables. And when you go 5 minutes before you start, you notice that there is 100 chairs in line, in rows. Okay, let's start moving on. And so it's something that making sure that your arrangements are as you have been planned, and not just always trusting that someone has took care of that. Okay, so quite a lot of stuff before we start, and this creates foundation for good delivery. So when we get together, getting started, setting up the stage together, building trust and connection. So taking adequate time for starting, and this is something we sometimes don't do, and we just are in a hurry, as I say. And so taking adequate time for starting, I guess this is something, it's also sometimes that the participants are not willing to discuss. They are eager to start talking about the content, but I'd like to, I quite often do so that, okay, I explain. Okay, it's good to take some time to introduce and warm up. So that we normally do. Noticing others, become personal present. And sometimes, okay, different ice-breaking methods can be used and so on. But I think here it's important not to just perform ice-breaking, but really to take some time to become personally present. Say something about yourself, your feeling this morning, and so on to others. So, and connect with others. And then agreeing on the purpose and aims. Why are we here? And not just saying it, or that there is a manager telling the purpose and aim, but making collective meaning. So talking about that. Why do we feel that this is an important topic or important workshop? Agreeing ways of working, methods, values, and principles. This is something that how we together create a good workshop. So it's not just the facilitator or the leader who will run the show, but it's collectively produced. And that's why it's important also agree on the roles and boundaries. So what does it mean to be a participant? What is a good participation in this workshop? How we could this time be a good participant? And then what's the role of the facilitator? And if we have a leader, we have an organizational leader in place, so we can also make this kind of symbolic shift of authority, meaning that the leader can then mandate you to facilitate and then be a kind of participant. Connecting to previous knowledge and experience. This is something that we could also talk that, okay, now we're talking about this is the strategy or new product ideas or this transformation. How this is connecting to your previous experience? What kind of experience you're having before? So this is something which I can call contextualization again. And adding also that this part, how we connect this work to wider organizational context. So whether it's a strategy, how this serves the strategy, or how this is connected to our new ideas, how to improve our customer service or whatever. There could be something else as well, but I think it's important to get started in a way that people feel that I'm competent participant. I can trust that this is going to be a very good workshop, because sometimes people might feel that there's a new way of working, or there's a new facilitator, or there's new methods, and we have a fear that we are not competent or we don't know enough. So it's important that people feel that they can trust that they are in a good, having a good ride together. Okay, then how to maintain the flow. Keeping up the rhythm. What are the kind of good rhythm between action and pauses, lecturing, and so on, so that people stay interested and there is a good rhythm, meaning that also that if we are working the whole day actively, it's quite heavy. So that there are lighter and heavier parts in a good rhythm. And then involving and including people in an appreciative way. I pinpoint this, that we sometimes have ideas that now everybody must do something in a similar way. That can create kind of fear and agony to some people, that we are sitting in a circle and now everybody must tell a joke. I think I couldn't imagine a worst case for myself, because I think I really feel agonized from this kind of perspective. But letting people to be involved or participate, that there is some regulation, that people can decide what way they will say something now. Maybe it's that they're having a round where everybody says something about themselves, and somebody can say, I don't want to say anything. Okay, you said already. So that's we can say that, thank you. And then this kind of reflexive mode, where we should be sensitive with concerns and issues of interest, because we don't know, maybe in a fuzzy situation, all these unclear situations, there could be that some things are hidden or kind of somehow undercover, and they come forth when we start working together. And maybe we haven't planned to give some time to certain issues so much, but that's again planning to have a kind of different scenarios where we can give space. Okay, this is an important issue. Let's talk about a bit more about this. It seems that there is a lot of stuff in this, because then we are respecting the participants and their concerns. And of course, sometimes it's that somebody's trying to take too much airtime, or just pinpointing same issues all over again. That can happen as well, because it's his or her worry. And that's very good. I think the point, how to redirect or interrupt unfruitful, unconstructed debate or interventions. And we can agree in the beginning about roles. Okay, as a facilitator, I'm allowed to stop someone who is not. Then we can agree this kind of rule. So then you have a mandate to do that. Or sometimes when somebody is pinpointing an issue heavily, I have done so that, okay, let's talk together how others are seeing this. So spreading it, because sometimes in an organization it can be a bit annoying that one person is really pushing some agenda forward quite strongly in every place. So that's I think facilitator's role to take care that the time is, nobody's hijacking the agenda. And of course, sometimes participants got stuck, they don't have ideas or so, and that the facilitator should somehow be able to help people to move forward. And channeling emotional energy to serve the purpose. So there could be some frustration, agony, worries, as well as enthusiasm and joy. So how to really hear that emotional reactions or energy so that it can be turned to serve the purpose. Okay, now I know that everybody's meeting how to do that, because that's really a sometimes tricky issue. And then I think it's important also to support the leadership in place. If you have a leader there, then it's somehow important to recognize that. But on the otherwise, also enable others to say aloud things, and then ask what comes to leader's mind from that discussion, for example. But not starting to compete or taking a leader's role, because this is tricky. This is really a tricky thing, that we fall out of the role as a facilitator if we start making decisions or not really taking into account the leader's role. And then how to maintain the feeling of competency among the participants. Again, that okay, that we are competent participants. And then closing a reflection. This is again, as I said before, that we normally have a lot of on the agenda and we don't have time to really close. But I think this is very important that we have time to assess the outcomes, comparing the expectations and the aims. So what we achieved, and was it good enough? Were we successful in this or that? And then reflecting on the experience, so personally and collectively. And I think it's that most important if you tried something new, meaning that, okay, we had this experiment of having a dialogue or having this kind of new method or something like that. So assessing that how we felt personally and what was our collective experience. And how, if we agreed at first that how to be a good participant, how was I able this time to be a good participant? And agreeing on next steps, so what will happen, what will follow? Because it's sometimes very frustrating that we have a good meeting, good discussion, a lot of ideas and nothing happens. So I think this is always important to agree how we continue. Okay, this was pretty fast and maybe generic level run through of facilitative process. But what I want to pinpoint here is the preparation and getting started or in a good way, and then closing, because those things we tend to forget. And again, this is it's always experiential. And when I in a opening lecture talk about this contextuality of organizational reality, I thought that I might have forgotten one word or concept, which I called emotionality, that all organizations are emotional context as well. And when we are in change situation, the emotionality is even sharper or deeper. And there's also these maybe more negative, or let's say concerns, fear, and such feelings are kind of stronger. And when we are facilitating some workshop, all those emotions are involved there as well. So listening to people and giving space, but then also keeping the process going are kind of things I'd like to pinpoint. All right, now it's time for our almost our second discussion, but before going there, I would like now that you will take 2 minutes and think about your own ideas of facilitation. What would you like to emphasize and highlight in your forthcoming session workshops as a facilitator or as a participant? So take 2 minutes, make some notes, and we will go on to the same discussion groups shortly. All right, time to continue. Hope you were able to pinpoint some of your thoughts. And next, we will continue in the same groups as in the beginning. But now, of course, somebody might drop out and somebody is coming in, and we might reorganize a bit, that there is no this kind of 2-person or 1-person groups, that there's a possibility to have a dialogue. But the idea now is to really have a dialogic discussion in a group. What will you emphasize in your personal facilitation practice and process in the future? Share that. And now when I was saying that in facilitation, it's utmost important to take a listener stance and asking good questions. Now you have a good opportunity to exercise a bit. So have a discussion so that agree who will start, and the person will tell about his ideas of the facilitation, what could be emphasized and highlighted, what were the kind of insights. and others will listen carefully. And then the next one will continue and connect the talk to previous ones. So try to make connections that you say, okay, that was nice. I really like that. But I would, yes, that, and from my perspective, I would like to add this and that. And have a 10-minute discussion. And then last 5 minutes, have a mutual reflection. How was the experience? How were you able to generate and maintain a dialogic moment? You could say that, okay, it was hard to listen, or it was interesting to just concentrate on listening. And again, write short notes about your experience. I will remind you when the last 5 minutes are starting. So altogether, 15 minutes. And don't be puzzled if there some persons pop up a little later to your chat. So just invite them to join. Okay, we will open up now the rooms, and let's see what is the situation, how many is dropping out and how many is continuing. Okay, enjoy your dialogue and next 15 minutes in breakout rooms. All right, nice to have you back. And now it's time for wrap up. So write something about your dialogic experience to the chat. So it would be nice to read. So we will most likely talk about that next time as well, a bit rehearse and wrap up that. But now I think it's time to start turning our attention to towards the end. And now I'm not really very well following my own learning points and have a good reflective closing, but maybe this breakout room hopefully served as a kind of wrapping up and reflecting on what was happening, and you were able to create a good dialogic moment, good listening experience. And now, as all those who are doing the exercises, you have opportunity to exercise more of this dialogic approach. And the task is to have a reflective dialogue on your course experience so far. So as we are in the midway, so this is kind of meta task as well, because you have this course participation has been kind of experience for you for sure. The exercises, the lectures, and maybe you have been talking about the experience to your friends and peers and colleagues and someone if it has been meaningful. So the first thing is to prepare by making your personal recap on the course experience so far, just bullet points in a way, what has been significant and how have you experienced the course. And the second, you will be assigned a pair again, like last time. So agree that you have an online sparring coaching style discussions. 15 minutes, you can take 20 minutes as well, in which the other will serve as a listener, helper, while the other will reflect on the personal course experience and insights so far. So this kind of mentoring, coaching discussion, but also kind of core, as its core, kind of facilitative discussion. And when you are serving as a coach, concentrate on listening and making supportive questions. Don't share your own experiences when listening to others, because in normal discussion, we start sharing right away. When somebody said, okay, it was a good experience. Yes, for me too. But now when other is saying that it was a good experience, or so far it's been great. Okay, tell me more. How is it been good? So that's the point. And taking this kind of role. And then after 15 minutes, change roles and have another conversation. And after this two conversations, have a kind of reflective discussion, how you felt, how was the experience as a coach and as a client. And then your task is to write a personal memo, max 1 page of your discussion experience. So how was it to be a coach and how was it to be a client? How could you train, exercise more? And this kind of positioning and taking a stance as a helper or listener is something you could exercise later on a lot and routinize it as well. So, and we discussed just with Risto that this is a very core issue of this kind of facilitative or coaching style of work. And return your reflection text to facilitating at aalto.fi mail. And there will be more detailed instruction through email available soon. So this is basically our task for you the next week. And now you have 2 tasks if you haven't done the previous one. The 4th one and 3rd one is now till next week. And then I guess we will.
Do you want me to launch the final poll?
Yes. So next week, it's about tools. On all those who are willing to know how to run sprints and workshops and how to use canvases, next week is for you. But let's have a poll.